So you want to start working on cars. Well, good for you. It's a great hobby. It'll take up a lot of your time. You'll meet a lot of good people along the way. Now I'm Clint Grover with Never Done Industries, and today I'm going to show you which tools you need to get started working on cars. I didn't have anybody around to teach me about cars when I was growing up, so I've had to spend the better part of the last 30 years learning on my own the hard way. Now, I'm here to teach you everything I've learned along the way. These are lessons from a car guy. Alright, so here we are. We're ready to start working on cars, right? You guys are, this video is for the beginner, okay? People who haven't worked on cars before. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at what do you actually have to be able to start working on cars. Obviously you're going to need to get some knowledge, right? You're going to need to read some books, maybe look on the internet, watch some videos, that kind of stuff. But there's a few tools that you're actually going to need. Now there is tons and tons and tons, millions and zillions of tools available, and there's a lot of them that are for special jobs, okay? But the reality of it is that working on cars, there's really only a handful of tools that you actually need to get most jobs done, right? And when you're just starting, when you're just getting into it, you don't need all the crazy fancy specialty tools. And something that a lot of you may not know is that you can actually rent most of the tools that you don't have from a parts store, right? An AutoZone or whatever. They have rental programs, so you can borrow the tool for a little while you're working on whatever you're working on, and you can bring it back. So you don't even have to buy the thing, okay? And some of them will even do it for free. You just pay them a little bit up front and then they give you your money back. There's all kinds of options. Maybe you got a buddy that's got some tools. But let's say you want to get started. You just got your first project. You want to start tinkering on it. What do you need, right? Well, there's only a few things. The things here on my table are the only things that you actually need to get started. So let's go ahead and go through them. Okay, so before we start going through the different things that you need, let me just give you some information. Almost everything on a car is bolted or screwed together, okay? There's lots of different components, there's lots of different systems, but most of them, at one point or another, it's either bolted to something or it's screwed to something, and most of them are bolted, okay? So, the very first thing that you're going to need is a way to undo bolts. Now I understand that there's different levels of budget, right? Maybe you don't have very much money, you only got a little bit of money, but you really want to get into it. That's fine. This guy right here, it's called an adjustable wrench. I'll bring it up there so you can see it. And what it does is it adjusts. You see, you roll that little deal there and it opens and closes so that you can get a big bolt or a little bolt undone. That right there can do a whole bunch of work with just one tool. These are only a couple of bucks. There's different levels of quality. There's different level of name brands for all this stuff, but you can get one of these babies for pretty cheap and you can do a ton of work with it. Now there are some bolts that are kind of tricky to get into, right? Like there's other stuff kind of in the way. And there's sometimes where this thing's not going to work, okay? It's just not going to fit in there. As if this is your bolt or your nut, and you can get on it like that, that's great. Or if you can get on it like that and twist it, then that's great. But sometimes this isn't going to work. There's a lot of them that are really on there tight, okay? And you might not have enough leverage with this to actually be able to get it undone. But an adjustable wrench is probably the cheapest way to get a ton of things undone, okay? So let's move to the next thing. A set of wrenches, okay? Now these are a specific size, right? And they've got different lengths and different angles and all kinds of different things you can get. But these come in a specific size. This particular one is 5/8, and you can either buy them individually or you can buy them in a set. Now these are a little bit better at getting into places because they have not only the box end out here that's open like that, where you can, get that in there on your bolt and undo it, but they also have this back side here that you can get on your bolt and undo it that way. And there's actually a way that you can link them together for a little bit more leverage. And so this is going to be the second least expensive way to undo bolts, and this is the way all the old timers used to do it, and obviously you can still use these today. and a lot of mechanics do. The set of wrenches is extremely valuable, and it's a tool that you'll use a lot. And it's, like I say, it's about the second most cost-effective way to get bolts undone. And there's two different sets that'll be available, okay? There's two different sizing groups, okay? There's a standard, which is like 5/8 and half and 9/16. And then there's what's called metric, and they're just a little bit different sizes, okay? So you can have a standard one and a metric one that look like they're about the same size, but they're a tiny bit different, okay? And different manufacturers use the different ones, okay? So sometimes it'll be standard, sometimes it'll be metric, and so you'll want both sets. You'll want a standard set and a metric set. The metric ones are in millimeters, okay? So it'll be like 9 millimeters, 12 millimeters, whatever, okay? So that's the wrench. Now, let's say that you've got some bolts that are on there really good, like cylinder head bolts or something like that, okay? Then you're going to want to step up to sockets, okay? Now these dudes right here, these are sets. This is a standard set, this is a metric set. And as you can see, they're very, very close. They look like they're pretty much the same sizes, but they're not. They're just a tiny bit different, okay? And the way these work is they go on what's called a ratchet, okay? And there's a bunch of different kinds of ratchets. There's long ones, short ones. This particular one has the ability to adjust and all that kind of stuff. Most of them are just like this. They're just straight. They don't adjust. They don't move, anything like that. And so what happens is you take one of these sockets. It's got a little hole on the back, little square hole, little square peg, and it hooks on there like that, right? And then you stick that on your bolt, and and the reason it's called a ratchet is, can you hear it? It's ratcheting. And you can do this for fun or to annoy your parents because it's cool. Anyway, so a ratchet and a socket set. This is going to be the most common way to undo bolts. And there's different sizes of, or different lengths of sockets also, okay? So there's some that are little short ones and there's some that are super long ones. It's just for different kinds of jobs, right? Just so that you can get to the bolt. Maybe the bolt's hidden way down in here, or maybe it's out here where you can get to it easy, whatever, right? There's a few different kinds, but this is going to be probably the best if you've got enough money to get a set of sockets and a ratchet. Then that's probably where I would start, okay? You don't have to spend a ton of money. You don't have to get the super fancy ones. You know, you can get the Harbor Freight ones or whatever, and just be a little bit careful with them, you know, like don't stand on them or anything like that because they might break. But that's going to be your best option, okay? And they've got them in a bunch of different sizes. They have the ratchets here in a few different sizes too. So this one here is the most common. It's a 3/8, and that refers to the size of this guy right here. There's also a smaller one that's a 1/4 inch that's for like little tiny bolts. And then there's a bigger one that's a 1/2 inch that's for big bolts and stuff like that, okay? So a 3/8 ratchet and socket set is going to be a very, very, very good investment for you if you're going to want to work on cars. You don't have to spend a lot of money and get a crazy one, but you need to get one, okay? Now that we're in that section, let's say that you got a bolt that's way, way, way down in the engine bay and it's really super duper hard to get to and you cannot get any of your tools to it, right? And you need something to lengthen it, right? Some kind of an extend-o-matic deal, okay? Well, you can also get these. This, see, it's got the same little hole on the end and the same little peg on this end. This is an extension, okay? And what it'll do is it'll hook on to your ratchet, and then your socket will go on the end of it, and then you can reach way super far down in there, and there's all kinds of different lengths. There's some that are 10 feet long, well, not really 10 feet long, but several feet long. And then there's little tiny ones, and there's all kinds of different sizes, but that's another option, something that you should look at least get like a 6-inch one or so, and that'll get you into a whole bunch of places. And you can hook a bunch of them together, and you can get ones that wobble and swivel and all kinds of cool guy stuff. But I would if you're going to get a ratchet and socket set, I would probably get one extension as well so that you can get into places, okay? So that pretty much undoes all of our bolts, right? Now, there are different types of clamps that hold things on, like hoses. They'll hold like wires up against pieces of metal, and you know, so they go the right places and stuff like that, okay? And so now we got to figure out, well, how do we get those kind of things undone? Screwdrivers. Now there's there's a few different kinds of screwdrivers, but there's two different kinds of screwdrivers primarily that you're going to need when you're getting started, okay? There's this one, which is a flathead or a blade, like I call it, and that's just talking about the end of it here, because it's flat, like a blade, okay? And that goes into the one that has the little slot, little screw that just has the slot. And then there's this one here that's called a Phillips head. See, and it's got the little plus deal there. It's also called a star. There's a whole bunch of different names for it, but this is a Phillips head, okay? There's tons of different sizes and lengths and brands and all that kind of stuff. You don't really need anything super fancy if you're just getting started. Just get a blade and a Phillips, and if you'd like to, you can get a few different sizes of them, because screwdrivers come in handy for all kinds of stuff. Sometimes you need to wedge them under stuff and pry it a little bit. You know, sometimes maybe the hose clamp is way down here and you need a longer one to get down in there to it or whatever. But a lot of the different things in your interior on your older vehicles are going to be screws. Even on some of your newer vehicles, you can also use screwdrivers for like plastic clips that hold on like bumpers and stuff like that. You can push it under there and pop it loose and stuff like that. So some screwdrivers is a good thing to have. Now, there's also, like I was talking about, the plastic clips and the different kind of clips and fasteners and stuff like that. Sometimes there's a need to be able to grab a hold of something and kind of pull on it, right? Pair of pliers, okay? Again, none of this stuff, you don't have to get the fancy stuff, okay? Just a basic pair of pliers. These ones here have an adjustment, so you can go to that size where it'll go, you know, super big or not as big, and it'll get tight, and it's an adjustable set, okay? Most of them are like this. So a pair of pliers. Or every once in a while you'll get something where you really need to hang on tight to it, okay? You can get a pair of these, which are called vice grips. And it's basically the same thing as pliers, except instead of being just a smooth motion where the clamping force of your hand is what holds it, these ones here have like a lock. So now they're locked. So they'll grab onto whatever it is that you're wanting to grab onto and hold it tight. Okay, so I can wedge on that, whatever. And then they got this little button right here, and you push it, beep, and it undoes it, okay? So you see how this is adjustable here. You just twist this, and if you look right over here, you can see that it opens and closes, so you can control how big, you know, how big of a thing it'll grab onto. And then the next thing that you're going to run into when you're working on vehicles is wiring, right? And so what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to get a pair of wire cutters. Now there's all kinds of different styles and types, and there's cutters and strippers and combinations and all sorts of stuff. And for you ladies out there, you can see that they even come in pink. You can get all this stuff in pink if you want, or black, or whatever. Anyway, what these do is they cut wire, right? But it's not just wire that they'll cut. They'll also cut like zip ties or a little piece of vacuum hose or whatever. And so a good set of, well, a set of wire cutters, you don't really need to get anything fancy. A set of wire cutters is very, very important, so that you can not only cut stuff, but you can also, you know, when you have the plastic shielding stuff on the wires, you can use these and you can just put it on there lightly, roll it around and score the edge, and then you can pull that off and expose the wire so that you can repair it, or, you know, put a new connector on or whatever. So, wire cutters, definitely get. And finally, one of my favorites, a whammer. To wham stuff, pow! Right? Maybe a little bit softer, maybe t-t-t-t, okay? So when you're working on cars, especially older cars, it never fails that you get everything undone and you try to pull it apart and it will not freaking come apart. Suspension and steering components are notorious for this. A lot of stuff on older vehicles is notorious for this, because over time you'll start to get, you know, corrosion and junk built up on the joint, right, where it comes apart. Anyway, a good hammer, give it the old taparoo, will typically free those things up. And so I would definitely suggest a hammer for your tool chest as you're getting ready to start working on cars. Okay, so a quick recap. You need something to undo bolts, you need something to undo screws, you need something to cut, strip wires, etc., and you need something to whack on stuff with. That's really all that you need to get started working on cars. Now, if you've got anything that you'd like to say, please feel free to comment below. I always check those every single day, and I try to reply back as quickly as I can. Usually it's the same day that I check it. Also, if you liked the video, man, give it a like. It helps the channel out a whole bunch. If you'd like to see more content from us, hit the subscribe button, and the little bell icon will make it so that every time we release a new video, which is once a week, it'll let you know, right? In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.